Erased Destiny 2, The Knower. Chapter 3, Price of Tranquility. Not everyone's life was made difficult by the sudden onslaught of winter. For Jargon, it was an opportunity to demonstrate his skills and earn a considerable sum of money. When work at the shipyard stopped due to the cold weather, the boy apprenticed with Everett. However, he soon had to abandon his notebooks, because the frozen sea prevented ships from coming to shore and also from leaving the port. The stranded boats put everyone in a hangry mood, which even strong liquor did not improve. To avoid sitting in an apartment unsuitable for winter stays with a frozen and angry mother waiting for her husband to return, Jargon wandered on the beach. His control over the ice allowed him to stay outdoors even during the harsh cold, and the sheepskin he bought at the port warmed his body quite well. Cyril's prolonged absence meant that Jargon enjoyed unfettered freedom and plenty of free time. During one such walk, the boy noticed a boat that was stranded at sea. With a damaged side, it was rapidly taking on water, and the ice crust made it impossible to approach the shore. Thinking little, Jargon ran to the boat, froze the iceberg under it, and threw all the way to the beach. The astonished sailors slided to the beach for the first time instead of sailing to it. Jargon used most of his power reserves, but thought little about it. He jumped on board to help sailors evacuate.
"Thanks, kid. You saved our boat." "What a muggy weather. They should let the icebreakers go. What are they thinking in this port?"
What are the icebreakers?
"Special ships made for crushing an ice crust. Their job is to clear the entrance to the port."
Curious about ships he had never heard of, Jargon walked into the tavern where Everett sat. The man was looking sadly out to the sea, as if several vessels had just sunk there.
Are there icebreakers in the harbor?
There used to be, but the sea hasn't frozen for a long time, so they sold them. They are sailing somewhere in the ice wilderness, and our losses are increasing every day.
I could crush the ice with my magic. Not for free, of course. And I would need some kind of boat. A simple, wooden one. And one mixture of power regeneration. There is a lot of ice out there.
The hell is. And you couldn't say that 5 days ago? Move your asses. We are sailing out. Jonas, run to the healer for a dozen of mixtures for the boy. Now?
Sailors rose from their chairs and several landed on the frosted floor. They quickly put on sheepskins, kapaks, hats, and wrapped themselves in long scarves. Before Jargon made up his mind, he was standing on the bow of Everett's private yacht, a small but highly maneuverable sailboat with metal-reinforced sides.
Show what you can do.
Jargon stared at the ice. He didn't quite know how to do the job. Without touching the ice, Etienne could cast spells, not him. Etienne. Why did he think of Etienne? He didn't know any Etienne. He had heard the name once, in magic school. The ninth lady of the Crystal Palace. The most powerful mage in history of magic. Because Everett was getting more and more impatient, Jargon said.
You must lower me over the ice. So I could touch it.
You heard the boy. Bring the rope.
Wrapped in a thick rope, Jargon hovered just above the white crust, begging the elemental spirit to be willing to assist him in the unequal battle against the forces of nature, Jargon said.
Ice control.
The crackle of the frozen shell could be heard throughout the port. People ran out of their homes, sure that some warehouses were collapsing or the longed-for thaw had finally come.
Come on! You can do it!
Pale from exertion, Jargon barely grasped the air. The first deep scratches appeared on the hitherto smooth surface. Suddenly, the stripped ship sank into the ice. Lumps shot upward, and Jargon, who was not pulled out in time, dived.
What's wrong with you? Get him on board.
The sheepskin protected the boy from immediate hypothermia, but loaded with water it weighed as much as an adult sea unicorn. As soon as the sailors hoisted Jargon aboard, Everett picked him up and carried him to his cabin.
You did well. Take those dry clothes, something to warm you up, and when you're ready, we'll get back to work. A lot of ice is still left.
I noticed. You were right about the number of potions.
What's that face? Kid, you're saving our asses. A bit of self-satisfaction won't hurt you. Leave the bargaining and organization of our work on my head. You have one task only, but extremely important, so concentrate on it. Ready? So let's go.
For the first time in his life, Jargon tasted mulled wine. He thought it didn't taste bad, although he wouldn't call it a delicacy. For the first time, he worked hard and earned money instead of reaching out for his parents' silver. Although his arms ached and his legs were like jelly, he wanted to crunch the ice all the way to the open sea. For the first time in his life, Jargon felt he was really needed by someone. For a few days of dangerous and grueling work, Jargon earned the equivalent of a lousy country cottage. And he would have earned even more had Joanna not forced him to take her home. With a heavy heart and a not much lighter purse, Jargon loaded his mother's luggage onto the cart, harnessed the horses, and himself saddled Patch. He promised Everett that he would return as soon as possible, but much depended on Cyril. His father's presence at home forced consultation to return to the sea at the worst time for that. Jargon feared that revealing to his parent the reason for the trip would derail any chance of the bold venture. If Joanna left the underheated apartment even for a moment, she would see Jargon in action. And then they would have returned home after just the first day of sea ice voyages. His father's absence, instead, necessitated leaving Joanna alone in the mansion. Although the woman had plenty of food, clothing, money, and servants, Jargon worried about her safety. His parents had always told him that in winter, when food is harder to come by, predators become more aggressive and people more willing to rob. They arrived home late in the evening, both ossified, hungry, and frozen. Furs didn't help. Hay didn't help. Because of the frost, the horses barely walked and people sought shelter wherever they could. At Cyril's residence, too, Joanna hissed at the sight of the door being chopped down with an axe.
The pinnacle of everything.
Mother, please stay in the carriage. I will look around.
No way. We're going to Sintra. This is a job for the guards. Determine who broke into our house also.
Unsurprisingly, Jargon and Joanna spent the night at the inn. Their living conditions deteriorated, and they did not meet Cyril. The cold prevailing in the room prompted Joanna to get up at the crack of dawn and immediately go to the town hall. Jargon lurched behind his mother, undecided what to do next. Having to stand in a line of businessmen wanting to see the mayor shook Joanna more than breaking into her house.
The pinnacle of pinnacles.
When it was her turn, Joanna stormed into Uriel's office, slammed the door behind Jargon, sat down in a chair, and threw out all the misery that had befallen her in one breath.
Cyril is missing. Our house was ransacked. We have no wood, nor a place to sleep. I'm so hungry.
Hey, yes. Melissa, will you make Joanna some tea? Could you take care of Jargon? We need to write down the burglary report and find alternate quarters for them. Are you saying that Cyril is missing? Since when? How did this happen?
At first, Uriel thought of Marigold and the accusations that Cyril made against her. The girl had a reason and the skills to annoy her neighbor. Joanna's words, however, quickly distracted Uriel from mentioning the youngest Noah. Supply problems plagued all Cynthian merchants, and certainly Marigold didn't have so much free time to search for Cyril's carts and add bark to spices in the coldest weather. Omer bowed to Jargon. The latter reflexively reciprocated the gesture and followed the maiden to her playroom. His thoughts were on the sea, along with Everett and the ice-covered harbor. But he couldn't leave his mother at the mercy of frost, burglars, and hunger. In his father's absence, Jargon felt responsible for his family's livelihood and, albeit reluctantly, postponed his trip to the sea until he could arrange shelter for his mother.
Terrible is this winter. I don't leave the house at all.
Very cold indeed. I hope there are not many victims.
We are doing what we can. In Sintra, we burn bonfires in the squares, and we also distribute food to the poor. But I don't know what is happening outside the city walls.
Jargon immediately thought of Marigold and her family. How are they coping with the hard frost? Do they have anything to eat?
Marigold.
Marigold? She is in Sintra. She works at the courthouse, and I think she spends the nights there. You may visit her if you like. I think she is free after 2 p.m.
Ah, that's good to hear. How is she doing? Did she get into any relationship?
I know nothing about it. I haven't seen her in the company of men.
Jargon clung to this information, like to the rope on which Everett made him fly above the ice. The last ray of hope in the midst of a frozen world.
Do you plan to propose to her by any chance?
Treated Jargon to donuts, which the boy reluctantly took. He tried to avoid sweets, but the lack of lunch, dinner, and breakfast made it hard for him to refuse.
I do have such a plan. Soon she would turn 16 and may become interested in relationships.
Oh, I am not so sure about that. Marigold is a very hard-working person, the youngest knower in Sintra's history. I am afraid she may not have time for romances now, but if you would like to spend some time together, you could attend the spring ball. She asked me a few times about it, so I think she's going to participate in the event.
That would be very nice indeed. Can she dance well?
Umie gently shook her head. She tried not to flutter her hair, as that was impolite, or twist her face to avoid looking petulant.
I am not sure. I haven't seen her dancing even once.
Satisfied with the answers, Jargon got into a loose chat about music. He was sure that Marigold had created the minor fiancé figure to free herself from Cyril and Joanna's harassment. If she was actually dating someone while living in Wolves' Rome, her family would surely know about it. And they wouldn't have planned to marry Marigold to a blacksmith's son. Accommodated on the second floor of Uriel's house, Joanna finally could find no reason to complain. She had her own bathroom, a heated room, and also access to varied food. Thus, livelihood issues fell to the background, and the priority became finding her husband. And so the woman began wandering through the families they had traded with to determine where Cyril had gone, when he had left, and when he should return. Meanwhile, Jargon considered it more urgent to regain his home. Before the guards assembled, the boy left town on the pretext of meeting with the chief architect. In order not to unnecessarily alarm possible tenants, the boy left his mare outside the gate and began his reconnaissance from the stables. They had taken all the mounts with them, so he was not surprised by the emptiness of the premises. The burglars apparently did not arrive on horseback because the drinkers had not been used for a long time and the water in them had not frozen. The front door, which had been stabbed several times with an axe, did not give in, so the burglars used a second entrance from the yard. And Jargon dug a basement window and got into the house that way. Inside, silence reigned. Even the boards on which Jargon walked did not creak. The quietness of his own footsteps so startled Jargon that the boy stepped on glass from a broken display case. Only the trampled glass made its typical sound, breaking the unnatural dreariness of the abandoned mansion. Wandering through the empty and cool rooms, Jargon felt as if he had returned home after many years of wandering, following the death of his parents. What surprised him most was the lack of servants. He hoped that the people working in the manor had escaped the burglars and had not been harmed by the attack. Aside from a few broken glasses and missing bedding, Jargon didn't note any losses on the first floor. It was as if the robbers were only interested in goods useful in winter: wood, food, quilts. Nothing was lost from his room, not even the coat hanging on the bed rail. The black clothes lay stacked in the dresser just as he had left them. The bedding had disappeared from his parents' bedroom, as well as the candlestick Joanna used to help herself to during her nightly trips to the toilet. Looking into all the closets and dressers one by one, Jargon noted the complete absence of stockings and wool socks. On the other hand, Cyril's office looked like it had been through a tornado: torn up, scattered papers, burned piles of documents and maps, a broken desk, a shattered window. Even the breakfast tray table was not spared by the burglars. Only here the window was broken. Only here everything was turned upside down. Only here the wooden floor was destroyed. After going around the entire house, Jargon was sure that it was the neighbors who had robbed them. They took nothing that could be identified by the guards, not even furs or winter boots. Only nameless household items, fuel, and food. In addition, they trashed Cyril's room, presumably to destroy evidence of the agreements that bound them. They didn't know that the prudent merchant kept all documents proving his possessions in the Centrian bank and books at home, more valuable than all the looted items combined. Supplied with winter clothes and shoes, Jargon returned to Sintra, where he shared the revelations about their home with his mother.
Merchants say that deliveries arrive on time and contain good quality materials. So wherever Cyril is staying, he has solved the problem. Just why isn't he coming back?
Maybe because of the snows. He can't get here.
Or he took the opportunity to penetrate other routes. He had long been carrying around the idea of a long-distance trip. But why in winter? Why when we need him the most?
Because you didn't let him go in summer or autumn, Jargon wanted to answer, but held back.